Good morning. We're going to call the meeting to order. Call for a motion and second to grant a leave of absence to Commissioner Pierce, who's out of town.
Second.
Any opposed? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Call for a motion and second for approval of the minutes of the special committee meeting of August 30th, 2018, and the regular commission meeting of September 12th, 2018.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. I'll ask Curtis for the executive director's report and his remarks.
Thank you, Madam President. Good morning, commissioners and guests. Very nice to see everyone here this morning. Stan, I wonder if you would start with a safety message for us as we see our safety champions turn over here on the overhead.
Great. So my message today is about our new port's new safety and health policy that we just approved. And the purpose of this policy is to communicate a clear understanding of the port's commitment to a safe and healthy workplace and its goal towards zero injuries, as well as relay expectations of safety excellence to all employees of the Port of Portland. The policy statement, I'm going to read it so that the commission can hear it, and this is it. The Port believes that the safety and health of each employee is of paramount importance. Therefore, it is Port policy to provide safe places to work and to maintain sound operating practices. Together, our concentrated efforts will provide safe working conditions with the added benefits of efficiency and productivity. Port managers have the responsibility to provide a safe workplace to enable employees of the Port to be successful by providing resources, education, training, and instilling expectations of excellence regarding safety issues. All employees are responsible for learning how to perform their jobs safely and for reporting incidents and unsafe conditions. Our goal is zero injuries. This will only be achieved with the active participation of every employee and non-employee of the Port. To ensure that we make steady progress toward our zero injuries goal, all facilities will regularly measure, post, and report the safety status of their locations. The Port intends to go beyond adhering to federal and state safety and health regulations as we strive to be one of the safest operations in our industries. With each of us working together, we will keep the Port a safe and healthy place to work. So that is our new policy statement. And I'd like to add that this document has the full support of the executive team. A poster of the policy will be signed by, when it's completed, will be signed by Curtis and will be posted in all of our operating locations. In addition, business unit leadership will also develop a local safety policy that aligns with the Port-wide enterprise policy. In closing, I'd also like to share that the Port's safety and health performance over the last 12-month period is the safest on record. Total recordable incident rate of 2.23. We are not satisfied. Each business is using the current information we got from our safety perception survey with input from our safety professionals and doing action planning to develop a stronger safety culture with employee proprietorship. And the new safety and health policy will assist us in all these endeavors.
Thank you, Stan.
Yeah.
I'll just note that we did talk at officers this morning about safety, and I really want to thank everyone, the whole Port team, for the real emphasis on safety and recognizing that it's not one person or one shop that's responsible. It's everyone throughout the organization, and we've made some great progress. Really appreciate the lean in on that. For the rest of my message, actually, I've got a pretty substantive construction update. Several of you have mentioned it'd be interesting to hear how we're doing on the projects out here at the airport. And so just a bit of time here this morning for you on each of the projects. First, terminal balancing. Actually, Stan and I had the good fortune of going out and seeing the progress on the project earlier this week. It's our over $200 million extension of the E-Concourse, 6 new gates. Construction's going very well, on time and on budget. We've got 267 structural pipe piles that have been driven to support the building. The 830-foot utility tunnel foundation walls and lid are complete. And when you walk in it, you realize it's long, 830 feet, but it looks great out there. The team's really doing a great job. Structured concrete slab pours started at the end of September. These are really the first seismically resilient slabs that we have out at PDX, so it's a pretty exciting addition. Pile caps, grade beams, and passenger boarding bridge pedestal supports will be poured over the next several months. Several of them we saw are already in, but that work is ongoing. Final designs complete for the Concourse E extension, baggage handling system, and makeup units, so essentially everything that runs back into the terminal. And the common use and ticket lobby and Concourses C and E are all tied into that work, really concluding a 4-year effort on design. The structural steel actually is now in the state. It's scheduled to start in November, just about a month away. I saw some photos yesterday, pretty massive pieces of steel that are essentially constructed on site and then deconstructed, essentially split up to move on the road to get on site and installed. And again, some great news on small business participation, currently at about 21%. Our goal, as you may recall, is 20%. So really, really good performance there on the small business side. On the parking additions and rental car facility, the work on the 82nd U-turn is progressing on schedule. You can see it when you approach. Motorists should be able to use the new lane by the end of November. Construction work is ramping up on the first large site utilities package, including significant modifications to the terminal's sanitary sewer network. The project team is working through the cost estimating process to set the maximum price for the design builder's work. And that, as you can imagine, in this environment is a pretty intense chunk of work. The trades are all very busy. We've talked about this a lot. Prices, in particular around steel, continue to go up, and so we're trying to manage prices accordingly. The project team has received the initial project schedule from the Hoffman-Skanska team. I'm sorry, now I'm moving into T-Core. Terminal Core, and they're evaluating gate utilization. The current approach is for public-facing work to start next summer, so the summer of 19, and the main T-Core utility work will begin in early 2020. The project team is working right now, our project team, on reviewing the initial cost estimates from the Hoffman-Skanska team, and so we'll be working through that here this month and next. And an art committee will be kicked off over the next month to begin the process to incorporate art into the building architecture. It's a new model we're really excited about, includes representation of several of the regional tribes, so a really nice effort there. So in terms of construction, a lot of activity. Passengers are beginning to ask when they're going to be hit with something, and I'd say now it's when I say hit with something, new things to see, hopefully not physically hit with something, but the roadway is certainly the first sort of real present evidence that something's happening. On to some other business. Last week, Congress passed and the President signed a 5-year reauthorization of the FAA bill. Some really great work by Oregon's own Peter DeFazio on the House side, real great leadership there, passed by overwhelming bipartisan support. We've been disappointed. I think I've mentioned several times a real interest in seeing an increase in the passenger facility charge. It did not include that increase, but we're hopeful that we'll be able to get back to the PFC conversation in the year or two ahead. It did include a number of regulatory and policy changes that really help us at PDX and other similar airports. It included the TSA Modernization Act, the first ever reauthorization of TSA since its founding in 2001, which Commissioner O'Halloran may remember because he was there. On other news, really good news for international air service connections to Europe. Delta Airlines announced that next summer's nonstop flight between PDX and London will be a daily service, which is fantastic news. As you know, we were concerned about getting folks on that plane. It's currently, this last summer, it was at 4 flights a week. So this increase is really terrific. That seasonal, now daily nonstop service will resume on May 9th. Last week, we were honored to host PSU President Ramat Qureshi to mark our 15th year of partnering with the PSU Community Environmental Services Group to reduce waste through innovation. The President and I had a great tour of our facilities with our team. We're just really proud of the work that we've done around waste management and diversion and recycling. We love working with the students in this program to pursue tangible environmental waste leadership programs. And then finally, Our 18th annual Hillsborough Airport Airfair is Saturday, October 20th. We open up the airport to the community, offer tours. It's a lot of fun, flight simulations, local food, and family-friendly activities. We're going to play some pool, skip some school, and act real cool. So I hope folks can get out and join us. Everyone's welcome. You can find the registration for the Hillsborough Airport Airfair, the link on our website. Madam President, those are my comments this morning.
I'll call for motion and second for approval of the executive director's report.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Do we have anyone for public comment today? Okay, thank you. So I'll ask if any commissioner wants a presentation on the consent items. I'll read the titles. First is Commission Policy Number 6.1.2, Investments. Second, ground lease, approximately 560 square feet to Harris Corporation, Portland International Airport. And third, ground lease, approximately 2.165 acres to PDX Logistics Center 4, LLC, Portland International Center. Anyone want a presentation on those items?
Madam Chair, I move the approval of consent items in block. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So I'll call Vince Granado to introduce the first agenda item.
Good morning. The first item we have here is for two requests. One, acquisition of some equipment related to the PDX CCTV or closed circuit television and Wi-Fi equipment that we're going to be installing here at PDX, and then also an amendment to the Hoffman contract to have them install it. We continue to add more and more CCTV camera locations. It's good for us, it's good for the passengers, it's good for service and safety. And then the Wi-Fi just continues to be gobbled up by more and more people over time in the terminal building. Used to be, we were thinking everybody'd have one device, and everybody's got 3 or 4 devices now that's actually just pulling down the bandwidth. And so this is part of a customer service program for us too, is to improve the Wi-Fi reliability. And there's dead spots here, certainly in the tunnels and other locations. And so we're trying to improve the coverage and then also the speed of the system. So Isabel is here as the project manager to talk about in more detail.
Thank you, Vince, and good morning. I'm here today to request approval for 2 commission actions. Is that better? Okay. The first is an approval to award an equipment procurement contract to purchase wireless Wi-Fi equipment from Converge One for approximately $1 million. The second is an approval to amend the existing public improvement contract with Hoffman, which was initially awarded for the PDX Replace Access Control System to provide construction services. Both of these will serve the CCTV and Wi-Fi improvement project for PDX. As Vince mentioned, the scope of this work really is to upgrade and enhance the Wi-Fi capabilities that we have at PDX, and also to do the same thing for the CCTV security system. The equipment procurement contract will actually purchase the Wi-Fi equipment, that's the wireless access points and any related Wi-Fi equipment. The construction contract amendment will procure security cameras and will also handle the install for the security cameras and the Wi-Fi equipment. Here's an overview of the project work area on the end-planing level. The yellow is the Wi-Fi coverage area, and the little black squares are the security cameras. The Wi-Fi upgrade is something that has been long requested by our passengers, and it will greatly enhance the customer service experience, and it will also improve operations for both airlines and port staff. Not only will it increase the number of Wi-Fi access points, but it will also expand the coverage areas and reduce those dead spots that Vince mentioned. In terms of the CCTV upgrades, that will address safety and security and also enhance port operational functions. Oops. On the deplaning level, you'll see the cameras are primarily focused on the baggage claim area, and for the Wi-Fi upgrades, we're looking at the international arrivals area, the tunnels, the rental car lobby, and also port operational areas. So this project was before you in July to request approval of a personal service contract amendment, and we're here today to request approval for the equipment procurement contract and the public improvement contract amendment for construction. Once we have approval, we'll be ready to start construction actually this fall and complete late summer of next year. Here's an overview of the project budget. The contingency is about 13% of the project cost. That's deemed appropriate given the risk profile and complexity of this work. The funding source is the airline's cost center, and the DBE program participation goal is set at 8%, which will be met by Hoffman. Staff requests approval of the executive director's recommendation.
Thank you. Do you have any commissioners with a question? Comment on the presentation?
All right.
Move to accept. Second.
Any, all in favor, please?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Isabella.
Vince, you have the final agenda item?
Yes. So this is a request of approval to enter into negotiations for a community benefits agreement related to the Terminal Core project. As you know, we've been talking about Terminal Core for a while. This is designed to modernize the main terminal building, seismic resilience, customer service, replace some of our aging infrastructure as well. This is really the first project or it's really the largest project in the PDX Next program. You want to go to the next slide. I think you all have seen certainly this slide before of all the different projects, and Curtis gave you an update on the construction. This is really related to Terminal Core and the Concourse A-B remodel, of which we have approval from the airlines to spend $950 million. Last May, you all approved a construction contract with the Hoffman Skanska team to do the work. And we've been talking with them since then about implementing a project labor agreement. And this will help us in managing costs, dealing with small business program, and ideally also solving labor disruption issues and labor availability issues through the life of this contract. Obviously, it's a very complicated project right in the heart of the terminal building, and stability of the operation and the ability to get the work done is really of paramount importance to us. So George has been working on this, and he's going to go through the details as the project manager on what all is included in the PLA.
Thank you, Vince. Good morning. So the entire T-Core project, as we talked about a few times, is set up to improve the seismic resiliency of our existing facility. We'll be constructing the western expansion about 180 feet to the west of the existing food court area. That area will then house the new security checkpoint lanes, which will improve and increase its capacity and the flexibility to enable us to modify security as time goes on and security functions change with TSA. The construction of the western expansion will improve our environmental efficiency. We'll be able to construct that building without an increase in overall energy utilization for the terminal complex, and we'll be able to improve our customer experience by demolishing Terminal A at the end of the project, as well as upgrading the entire process. At the end of the project, with the approval of Phase 2 from the airlines, we'll reorient the ticketing hall in a 90-degree orientation from where it is today, which will be a very intuitive passenger processing experience and a wayfinding experience. What the airlines have approved, Phase 1 at this point is the construction of the western expansion, the construction of the roof over the entire building, the removal of Concourse A, and the reconstruction of Concourse B. The first work that the passengers will see will be the construction of the AB area. We will remodel Concourse B, demolish Concourse A, and then associated ramp work around A to improve the RON, remain overnight parking process. You can see the addition of Concourse B here coming off at an angle, the existing Concourse B. There at the bottom of the screen is the Concourse A shaded area. So one of our big challenges on this project right now, and we're still working through all the details, is how do we transition the passengers to A, which will need to remain in operation during the construction of Concourse B. So the team's looking at how to transition around the construction process and maintain safe conditions for both the passengers as well as the construction workers. So a PLA for this process, the commission approved the PLA's policy in January of 2012. Basically, this policy says if for any project over $25 million, port staff needs to evaluate, does a PLA make sense? If it does, if it advances the port's legitimate business and allows competitive process, then commission must approve this process. April 2015, we presented a workforce partnership agreement on the TBAL project to commission as a pilot program to see some conditions that we can incorporate with the PLA. Some of the lessons learned on the TBAL process that we're trying to incorporate in this, there were some issues around health and pension double payments to some of the contractors. There were difficulties in meeting the apprenticeship goals. Excuse me. And there were also some cost implications around scope. So the PLA will mostly resemble a community benefit agreements. That gives us the opportunity to incorporate the port's diversity and equity goals with this process. This the PLA will advance our legitimate interest in this process. One of the key issues that we're trying to get around, as Vince talked about, is the ability to minimize disruptions to the passenger processing during the construction. It will be an extremely complex construction process, and we're trying to minimize any labor disruption to this process. During the public hearing for the PLA, we had three commentators. One of the more compelling comments was from Maurice Raming, who is the owner of O'Neill Electric and chairs the Metropolitan Alliance for Workforce Equity. One of the things he said, I wanted to paraphrase him, is this model ensures greater participation for underutilized community, and the construction is a pathway out of poverty for a lot of people. Key components of the PLA will be a guarantee against strikes and labor disruption to the during the project. It will enable us to increase our small business participation. One of the challenges for any business, especially small businesses, is working at the airport. It's a very difficult area to work around. So we're trying to utilize the PLA to enable policies and procedures to be set in place to make it easier for the small businesses. We will enable to advance and enhance workforce training and retention programs as a part of the PLA. We'll also be able to provide technical and business assistances to small businesses. Next steps in the PLA process will be developing the PLA outline. Hoffman Skanska will then negotiate with the trades for the terms of the PLA, and then we'll sign off the PLA prior to the commencement of the major construction activities, which should begin early next year with Concourse B. Overall project schedule, as Vince commented, we've been here a lot with a number of the TCOR commission items. We anticipate continuing design activities throughout 2019-2020. Hoffman Skanska team will be developing the guaranteed maximum price for Concourse B, which we anticipate bringing back towards the end of this year, maybe early next year. Construction activities will begin with Concourse B middle of 2019 on the customer-facing areas. The main portion of the Western Expansion utility work should begin early 2020, with the Western Expansion be complete by the end of 2023. Staff recommends approval of executive director's recommendation.
Thank you. Do we have any questions or comments on? Yes.
Okay.
Earlier also, Ricky gave
the lessons learned include on instances of either duplicative or double payments to contractors and this and that. Can you just give us one example of a situation where that occurred and why and how this would prevent that from occurring?
Yeah. When the original PLA was set up for the terminal balancing project, there was a requirement that any non-union contractor had to pay into the union pension funds and benefit plans. At the same time, the contractor was paying his own people's health care benefits and pension plans. So by the original contract, he had to do double payment. So our goal is to clarify that so the contractor wouldn't be responsible to pay both areas. And that happened very early in the process, which we then corrected going forward.
Commissioner, I would just add that that use of the PLA on terminal balancing was characterized as a pilot. When you say you're going to enter into a PLA, it is a type of agreement. It is not a specific agreement. And so it's subject to negotiation, and this was sort of our first foray into that. And the issue around double payment of benefits was really I would say, arguably ambiguous contract provision. We think the reading was pretty clear, but the labor did have an argument that it required double payment. We didn't end up double paying, but it slowed down the project because of the confusion around that.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And also, thanks very much for the presentation. And I know, when was it that the commission adopted the willingness to work within CBAs? Was it 2012?
2012. Yes.
Okay. So first, I want to just acknowledge that was early on in my understanding of these types of agreements being developed. So I commend the port and the staff on the willingness. And I've watched the number of CBAs, whether it's the county or the Department of Parks or the city. And there are a number of moving parts, and I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned. So I'm glad that this initial pilot gave the port the opportunity to look into those things that can be refined. What is it that we're approving today? Because as I read this, the port has a number of opportunities to step away from this if it turns out not to be in the best interest of the port and all parties. And the question I have specifically is, does that recommendation come back to commission, or is that made independently of commission?
Didn't you want to?
I think the answer to the question is it's made independently. The legal framework for PLAs is really traced to case law, that there's case law that allows this type of structure. The case law delineates the things that have to be true in terms of things that are in the interests of the owner, in this case the port, that have to be found to be in the interests of the owner. If they're not, then it would remove the underpinnings for doing the PLA. So that's why the agenda item is characterized as to negotiate a PLA, which we call a CBA, consistent with what's in the best interest of the port. So if we can't negotiate provisions that sort of address the lessons learned from the last one, then it may no longer be in the interest of the port. But it is our hope and our expectation that that Hoffman Skanska would be entering into a PLA with the trades.
But and understand, given the scope, it sounds as if there is no requirement to sort of bring that back to commission, but is there an intention to bring that back to commission?
We can certainly do that. I think our expectation would be that, again, that we're going to get to a successful negotiation here. I think if we come to terms, or if we can't come to terms that we're just not willing to live by, we can certainly have that conversation with you and let you know where the elements are that we just couldn't get to.
Yeah, and it's not, and again, my interest in that would not be to have it approved or disapproved by commission, as much as to close the loop on what we think is going to be a significant commitment on the part of the port to a number of parties in the region.
Commissioner, I think you rightly point out since 2012, there's been a lot of learning, sort of different models and county and some of the development out in Washington County, more recently the U of O on some of these larger projects. And we've been trying to learn as we go. I think the 2015 experience was imperfect for us, but it was a good learning experience. I think we're getting something out of that experience, and happy to bring it back and talk with you all about where we ended up.
Great. Thank you.
Do you want to recognize the folks that are here? If I could, thank you, Madam President. I just want to recognize some of the folks who testified. Our friends from some of the building trades are here, and Maurice Romig from O'Neill Electric and NAMCO. Thank you all for coming. Obviously, welcome your comments if you'd like a chance to speak, but just want to recognize you and thank you for your commitment to this process, and appreciate your engagement.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments, commissioners?
Madam Chair, I move the approval of the recommendation to require the Port of Portland's construction management general contractor to negotiate a project labor agreement for the terminal core redevelopment project.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We'll adjourn the meeting.
Record time.
No, that was weird. That was weird. Good job. No, I'm serious.